Bills and manifests. Going around, you have them?
Got 'em.
All right. The first order of business is we do have to have a very brief non-public session under RSA A:32C. So I'll make a motion that we go into non-public under that. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Hartford? Mr. Janiver? Ms. Gunter?
Yes.
And Mr. McGuigan is yes. So we're going to go into non-public for a few minutes. We'll be right back, hopefully. Hopefully it won't be too long. So, we're going to move on to our opening public comment session. At this point, we'd like to invite any members of the public that would like to get up and speak, address the board. Please just be aware that per policy, you're limited to 3 minutes each.
Hi.
Just go ahead and
My name is Shirley Glennon. I live on Angela Drive. I have a child who goes to Northwood School and one who will in a couple of years. I'll keep this quick tonight because I know most of you have heard me talk before that I support the curriculum director and full day kindergarten for various reasons, including the benefits of early intervention. And I think the curriculum director would be great for our older students to be benefited by a more challenging curriculum. I also wanted to mention that you may not see as many parents here tonight as would like to be, because to name just a few, there's baseball practice, there's track tonight, and there's lacrosse practice tonight. So the parents and community members who are really involved in the school and have a vested interest for the kids are out there volunteering tonight, so they can't all be here. So I know I'm speaking for at least 10 other parents when I go up and say this. So thank you, and I'm off to practice.
thank you.
Tiffany Fuller, Princess Pine. I just wanted to come tonight to say once again that I support the full day kindergarten that's on the agenda. I know that the way the deliberative session went and the way most people in the town voted last time, I'm preaching to the choir, but I just wanted to be another face here tonight to support the school board members who are trying to push that agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Michael Fiala, Old Turnpike Road. Tonight, the Northwood School Board will give a civics lesson to Northwood's children. Will that lesson be, citizens should vote because our votes count? Or will it be, it doesn't matter how or whether you vote, because government will do whatever it thinks it should do, despite your votes? Northwood voters have repeatedly said no to a full-time curriculum director and all-day kindergarten. I urge the school board to think about the message your action tonight will send to the citizens and children of Northwood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just have copies of this for the secretary and the board members. And I have my timer set. Oh, you know what? I need one of those. One of those you can share. All right, so this is just a history of the voting on the kindergarten issue and the curriculum director issue over the past couple of years, taken from the town reports and from the document that's given out at Town Hall that has all of this year's voting on it. And you all obviously have seen these numbers before. Just a couple of things that I wanted to point out that aren't made obvious here. By the way, I am in disagreement with the majority of the board on the subject of kindergarten and on the subject of the curriculum director, and maybe in disagreement with some teachers and parents about those things too. I'm always happy to talk to people about why I see those issues the way I do see them, but I come in peace, and I just want to I want to have these numbers in the record of tonight's discussion. And I want to point out that Mr. McGuigan won re-election with 450 votes, I think it was. But if you look at the numbers of people who voted for kindergarten this year, only 361 people voted for kindergarten, as far as we can tell based on the way the articles were worded. That is to say 20% fewer people than those who voted for Mr. McQuicken. And if we look at the curriculum director numbers, it was barely half as many people as voted for Mr. McQuicken. In other words, about half the people who voted for him did not vote for the curriculum director. So people like Mr. McQuicken. And I am very appreciative of the service that he's doing for the town of Northwood, myself. But I think those are interesting observations, and of course both of those articles did fail on this year's ballot, as they did last year and in the case of kindergarten the previous 2 years. Yes.
Thank you. Addressed that before? No? Okay. Just wanted- Nope. It's their turn to talk.
I'm sorry.
Hey, go for it.
Okay, so, I was too chicken to speak last time, at our last school board meeting, but I got my guts. I brought my guts with me this time.
I'm sorry,
So-
can you identify yourself? For
I
the-
will in just one moment.
Okay,
My
thank
name is
you.
Lucy Lovato. I live at 281 Bow Lake Road. I wrote a letter, but life got in the way and it hasn't been sent yet. So it was to the school board and to the SAU. But I want to discuss Jody LeBrie. I had gone to speak with administration about, there were two people in the school that I absolutely adore. One is Miss Metzger, the lead teacher of the NET program, and the second is Jody LeBrie. There are others, just in case I didn't add anyone, but those two in particular I've had personal interactions with my children. So I'm going to read this letter. So as a substitute teacher at Northwood Elementary over the past 5 years, I've worked with Jody LeBrie on many occasions. I enjoyed working with her and have become familiar with her way of teaching and her dedication to finding ways to connect with her students. Jody has an amazing way of building rapport with the most behaviorally challenging students with compassion and respect. She always has a smile on her face to match her positive attitude and her willingness to assist any student or coworker. When I substituted for a teacher with whom Jody co-taught a class, she took control and communicated to me with which students to support and which students could have a little bit more time in order to succeed on their own. She shows her students respect, compassion, and leads them to love learning as she shows enthusiasm for the subjects she teaches. As the parent of an 8th grade son who has emotional and behavioral challenges, Jody has been able to help him with those challenges on many occasions during the school day. Before my son was included in an autism program, Jody was able to connect with him as I have seen her connect with other students. Knowing there is someone who cares as much as Jody does is an unbelievable relief for parents. There is someone who wants the best for your child as much as you do. My other son is a 7th grader who has anxiety and panic attacks. I have seen Jody succeed in building my son's confidence, his organization, and catch up on work in which he was behind. Jody has worked miracles with him as she tutors him after school 2 days a week. I knew Jody as a coworker first, where I learned how important her students are to her and how dedicated she is to them. Their success is her success. One thing my mother used to say, that as parents we work ourselves out of a job, and I believe Jody has that same feeling with some of the students with whom she works. As she sees the students make small successes, she encourages them to continue trying their best until they see and feel they can be successful learners. Jody is an asset to Northwood Elementary School and this community, as she has a positive impact on the lives of the students, which will then impact their future educational pursuits. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. George.
Hi, Tiffany George, 654 First New Hampshire Turnpike. I'm here in support of full-day kindergarten. I'm sure you guys have all heard me say this before. I think that the long-term benefits of having full-day kindergarten and helping kids catch up when they're starting behind or many grade levels behind their peers, even in kindergarten, will pay off long-term for the school anyway. I appreciate, I didn't catch your name, but, or your, Mary, okay. I appreciate your kind way of disagreeing
So I think that's great. I didn't see the numbers that you handed out, but I know from talking to at least a few people who voted against full-day kindergarten in the past that they didn't support it when it was a warrant article because they felt like the school board wasn't behind it, and that if the school board wasn't going to put it into a budget, then they weren't going to support it. So I just want this to be on the record saying that those numbers, while those are the way people voted, that it could have changed this year because it was actually on the budget, or in the budget. And also, I think that it's a shame that we don't have a well-established curriculum here at Northwood School to go and flow from one grade to the next, if at all. And that I think that for us to get a full-time curriculum director in here is what we need for that to happen, because I don't see how it will happen any other way. Thanks to the board for all your time. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? That's great.
Well, you know how I feel, but I'm coming in in peace as well. But my studies have proven that, and actually I have one that I'll submit to the secretary to include with the minutes. And I just feel that and also you're in the process of strategic planning, so I think that will. I'd rather see that go through and rather than have the overlap of that from a budget standpoint. And then I still feel, I also have looked up studies. I guess New Boston Center School did a research study on full-day kindergarten, and they decided that it wasn't as beneficial as they thought it might be. And I'll submit this as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other member of the public want to take this time while you can? All right, seeing none, I'm going to open it up to any board members who would like to address the board themselves. You look, you were.
Yeah, I got a couple
Mr.
things.
Wells.
So I got in the editorial page of the Union Leader, it's called School Board Shuffle. Klein to replace Raffio. And if you don't know, Klein is the executive counsel that Sanu wants in, and he was put in as the new State Board of Education. But on Tuesday, Governor Chris Sununu personally made his case for full-day kindergarten to the House of Education Committee. Sununu is trying to convince skeptical conservatives to back his plan for an additional $18 million in state aid to towns with full-day kindergarten, which State House Democrats have called one of their top budget priorities. So, I mean, it goes into the mix-up between Klein and Raffio and who's better through it, but we don't need to get into that. But one thing I do want to say is that there was another quote in a different article, and I thought it was really, really good. It says, when you predict the future, you get things wrong. And I keep on hearing that the enrollment of Northwood is going down, and I believe that's a prediction that is going down. I want to disagree with that, because the thing is, if you predict the future, you are absolutely correct. You're going to get things wrong. But if you plan for the future, right, and you plan to say, I want 400 to 410 students, right, and start planning with a strategic plan, and understanding that we need a full-time kindergarten and we need a full-time curriculum, so we have a plan, so people understand that Northwood is a better school, people will come. And I guarantee it, the enrollment numbers are going up, not only here, but at Co-Brown as well. We all know that. And I'm telling you, in 2 years, we're going to be over 400 students. And that's because we're planning for that to happen. We're not predicting, we're planning. And that's what we're doing here for the Northwood School, and make it better. That's it.
Thank you. Any other members of the board wish to address the board at this time? No? Only once, twice? Okay, we're going to close the public comment session. Next up on our agenda, we have a number of things. Approval of minutes, business administrator's report, so on and so forth. Deep down in new business, we have our decision on kindergarten and curriculum director. Given the interest that the public has in this issue, I would ask if the board would like to move those discussions up till now, so that people can. Sure. observe them and not have to sit through everything else if that's what they're here for, just that. Any objection to that? You guys want to do that? You okay with that? All right. Okay, so let's do that then. So we'll do the decision on kindergarten and decision on the curriculum director, and then we'll go back and restart with the approval of minutes and so on and so forth. All right. So, with that in mind, I'd like to start discussion by making a motion that the Northwood School Board direct the superintendent to take all appropriate actions to implement full-day kindergarten for the 2017-2018 year.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I'm for it. I've said that from the beginning. That was what I think that's what I went into the budget season planning, to put it into the budget. And that was the discussion that we had, whether to do it as a warrant article or in the budget. And I said from the get-go, I wanted it in the budget. We got it into the budget, and I think we presented a good budget with it in there. So I think that the petition warrant articles were unfortunately reworded in a very hard to understand way. So I don't necessarily think that all of those votes are exactly what they should be. I could be wrong, but I 100% support full-day kindergarten.
I agree. I think it was written, it was said that the school board was in favor 3-2 on those warrant articles those petition warrant articles to take out full-day kindergarten, take out this amount of money, take out zero amount of dollars. People would come out to me, I was like, what is this? I don't even understand what this means. So people's like, I don't know if I voted no, I don't know if I voted yes, I don't know what that meant. I did vote, but I don't know which way I went, because I couldn't understand it. So,
And
I think the petition articles this year would be nothing. And I'm willing to look into curriculum director if people have any thoughts about why they shouldn't be there, but the kindergarten one, I'm in full support of that one.
Thank you.
So,
Go for it.
that's all fine. I listened for an entire year why an incredible amount of people gave reasons why the town voted the way they did. So they had another chance, and once again, the town voted that they didn't want full-day kindergarten. They didn't want to pay for it. You can assign that to whatever reason you want. It was very clear. And they didn't want full-time curriculum director. It's just that simple. It's their money. They have a right to be listened to. They have a right to be heard. I think that down the road, voting to go against the will of the people is going to do the school more harm than good. And I won't do it. Thanks.
Right there.
I agree with Tim. I think it's unfortunate because I know that those warrant articles were changed by people who actually supported full-day kindergarten. And if they changed them in a way that was so confusing to the people who are voting, that's also unfortunate. I'm really disappointed in the school board's plan to put the full-time curriculum director in the budget specifically because it failed by such a wide margin, but also because we have a part-time curriculum director who has made it very clear that she is not interested in being a full-time curriculum director, which means we're going to have to get rid of her and get a new one. And all of the work that she's done in the last year will be out the window and we will be starting over again. And I think that that is disappointing. As Tim said, I think that if you go against what was very clear in the vote, it's going to create more tension between the board and the town, and I think that that's the wrong thing to do. I think it's pretty clear how everybody's going to vote, but we're all having our say, so. Thanks.
I just wanted to read this letter that I got from a constituent, just because while I was standing outside at the polls all day, I saw this happen again and again, people coming out of the polls and saying things similar to what I'm about to read to you. So this is from Mrs. Jennifer Fry. I want to write this letter prior to Thursday meeting as I know you are discussing the result of the petition warrant articles is on the board's agenda. I'm aware that the school board budget passed, however, warrant articles around both full-day kindergarten and full-time curriculum director did not pass. I want to address the complicated and unclear nature of the ballot and how it confused me, and I'm willing to bet many of the other voters in our town. I was fully aware that the budget this year was inclusive of both full-day kindergarten and a curriculum director, and I knew I wanted to support the budget fully. I voted in support of our school budget. However, when I got to the warrant articles around those two issues, I read them and reread them several times and looked to see what the school board was recommending. I couldn't understand why, given the current composition of the school board and their vocal 3-2 support of those two issues, would have recommended that we not support full-day kindergarten or curriculum director. As a result, I figured I must be reading something incorrectly and defaulted to what the school board recommendations were, and left the building. I got home and shared my confusion with my husband, who immediately told me that this was one of the issues that came up in the deliberative sessions. He also told me that you, Keith, had spoken specifically about how these would be confusing to voters and the wording should not be changed during the deliberative sessions, and yet it was changed. I want the board to know that I, as a highly educated member of our town, made an error based on the confusing language on the ballot. Many of us showed up after a long day of work with kids tugging at our jackets, begging to go home for dinner, and we were handed 3 pages, double-sided, of important questions of which we were to respond. I admit my haste and my fatigue, along with the confusing language, caused me to vote in a manner which I do not actually support. I support full-day kindergarten and the hiring of a full-time curriculum director 100%. I am frustrated and disappointed that my own cognitive state at the time, coupled with the confusing layout, tricked me into voting into a way that supports the complete opposite of my beliefs. I believe those warrant articles failed so significantly and drastically because of many other Northwood residents who were in the same situation as I was. So as you move forward on Thursday addressing these warrant articles, please take into account that by messing with the language during the deliberative session on the 4 warrant articles, the town managed to confuse a full-time college professor with several college degrees, and I'm guessing many of the other residents of our small town as well. I think the passing of the budget, as well as the re-election of you, Keith McGuigan, for another term, speaks volumes to the fact that this town is prepared to sink resources, time, and effort and love into our children to ensure that they are given the best possible K-12 education that Northwood, New Hampshire can provide. Thank you for your time. That was Mrs. Fry. Thank you for that. I think your letter pretty much sums up my thoughts on this, and like I said, I was there, and I heard many other people say the same thing when coming out of the voting booth, that they didn't understand those petition warrant articles, and they went with the school board's recommendations, which were on those backwards from what the intent was. So that's all I've got to say about that. Is there any other discussion?
Were you going to say something?
I agree.
Okay, well, you had raised your hand before you said.
No, I just said, that's what I was saying before, but I was more.
I just wanted to follow up on what Tim said about the townspeople. They also elected us to do what is best for the students in this school, and we have to listen to the administration, and we've asked the professional staff from the school what their feelings are on both of them. And I just feel like we've done research. You can look at both sides of it. Some will say no, that it's not worth it, that it's going to do harm, and you'll find just as many research papers out there that say that it's a wonderful thing, and that, you know, every kid that goes through full-day kindergarten is going to prosper and be a CEO of a business. So, you know, they wash each other out. So I just want to say that my feeling is that, you know, I ran 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever, 2 years ago, with the stand that I wanted a full-day kindergarten, and that I wanted a full-time curriculum director, and I still stand behind those fully. And I was voted in by a small margin, but I was still voted in.
I also just want to say, and I wish I was more involved in the school board in years past, and then I'm not saying it's a collection of what we've been doing. Let's look at what we've accomplished this school budget on this election. We got an accreditation process coming, right? We voted in a strategic plan, for a 5-year plan, right? We're on the way for full-time kindergarten, right? And we're trying to get a K-8 curriculum. I mean, if those 4 things are not awesome, I don't. It's amazing. I mean, we've accomplished more in 1 year than the school has accomplished in a very long time, and that is awesome. And I'm glad I'm part of it, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Anything else? Everybody ready to vote?
I am.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining, motion carries 3-2. Moving on, I'll go ahead and make the motion that the school board direct the superintendent to take the appropriate actions to hire a full-time curriculum director.
Second.
Discussion on that. Actually, before we have discussion, do we have information from?
Dr. Kavanaugh is here and has some remarks for you, and also has prepared a report that I will pass around.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very much.
Do you want to pass the other things around? Okay, so there's two separate. There's the long, short. This is the math. This is the okay. Adrian, do you want to take the whole thing?
Those are just a few examples of the work that is in progress.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see you, Adrian.
Thanks.
If you want me to put it in there. I can email you the report. Please. Yeah, okay. I don't know. Am I speaking?
Yes.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to first meet you. It's the first opportunity I've had to meet all of you, and I have to say, I'm not taking personally any of the things because I know that it was a discussion about the position, and it is true that I am unfortunately not interested in a full-time position. I just retired from a job in New York, and this was a great opportunity. You guys have a fantastic school here. I mean, a really, really wonderful school, fantastic kids, unbelievable staff here that are sitting here, and a really, really good administration. So I think there are good opportunities that, and as I'm listening to some of the things that are being said, what I can say is that my assessment coming into the building and having been in education for 30 years and worked as an administrator for, I guess, the past 15, is that there's been a lot of mobility in the school and a lot of transience in administration, and I think that has caused what sort of the egg carton effect in the school, which is that teachers tend to feel that if there's going to be change all the time, then they're just going to sort of do what they think is best. So what you're going to see is you have pockets of brilliance in the school, fantastic teaching, and you have people that are sort of, you know, doing the best that they can, but aren't, the best isn't being gotten out of them. And one of the main things is a curriculum. I think the first thing when I came in is I said, you guys need a curriculum. This is, teachers are using textbooks as a curriculum, and that is not appropriate. It's not a good idea, because as the textbook changes, then everything changes. You need to have a solid curriculum that's aligned to standards, that is also in line with what New Hampshire is expecting in next year to be aligned with the competencies. So what you see here is the sample of a K-8. I just gave you a 5th grade. It's a scope and sequence. Beneath the scope and sequences for ELA and math are units that go along with the scope and sequences that are also tied into the materials that the district has already purchased. So it won't mean that you need to purchase new materials, but it'll give teachers a sense of structure. And for new folks coming in, it'll give them, what am I supposed to be doing? And Also, good guidance. And it also will help administration in supporting staff in what they're supposed to be doing and guiding them in pushing for more rigorous curriculum and student work, which I think that's something else that you're seeing, that I see pockets of. I see teachers that are expecting a lot, and not necessarily the whole school is on the same page with that, and I think it can be. So I think that being part-time has enabled me to start a lot of things, but not necessarily be good at supporting initiatives that have come about. The curriculum work and those kinds of paperwork things I can do at home, and I've done a lot of that. I'm not worried about the days because I love that work. But I think the thing that's been hard is, and I was telling Ellen that one of the things that I had done with second grade is encourage them to work together to do kind of a walk to read program. And I sat down with them, and if you see on the second page of the ELA, that's a sample of the type of data that Ellen collects in her classroom. Absolutely phenomenal. That's where you want to be. That's where you want to go. You want teachers collecting discrete data all the time on students and then tracking them over the course of the year so that they can really do a good job of instructing. But the other thing about it is that the second grade entirely does it, so you can move kids within literacy block to do a good, more targeted instruction of kids at their instructional need. Well, the problem was that I started the conversation with the second grade, but of course I'm only here, this day and that day, and when I was able to come back the next week or whatever it was, that's not a good thing for teachers because you need continuity. You need to start them on an idea and then the next day finish up and then consistently go with them, because then they lose interest or they're like, oh, that was last week, and I think you'll agree with me that it could have been a great idea, but had I been here full-time, I would have been able to be more effective. The other thing also is that there are other grades that I haven't been able to do quite as much with, and I think that a full-time person could schedule, be in classrooms, a new initiative is started, they could go in and kind of make sure that it sticks. I think that Jocelyn and Adrian have tried to do as much as they can, but they're also in the position of doing observations. There's a lot of other things that are going on in the school. So a full-time person, I think at least for the next few years, while you're kind of getting things together, is really, really important to support the work that they're doing. And a lot's changing in the state. The science standards are new, they're coming out. That hasn't been, handled yet. The competencies need to be fully developed. So I really think that and also the accreditation. I was telling Scott, I've been through 2 accreditations in my career, and it is a massive amount of work. Massive. Paperwork, asking teachers to develop artifacts, getting documents together. It's an enormous amount of work, and you don't want to undertake it and not get it. So it's kind of one of those things, if you don't put a lot of effort into making sure that the accreditation is solid, you may not get it, and I think that would be a problem. I think that wouldn't be good. So I don't know if you have any questions for me or any thoughts, or... Yeah.
The transition, if we decide to go with a full-time curriculum director, with what you've developed so far, how much would it be? I mean, I don't know what one curriculum director to the next, if they do everything on the same, like what you're showing me here, or is it?
I think that's a valid concern. I think that is an absolutely valid concern. I spoke to Jocelyn, and I told her that I would definitely like to be on the committee if someone was hired, because I have strong opinions about, and I would want to...
That was my second.
I would want to, kind of make sure that I felt like that person was going to be helpful. The second thing is, I'm happy to help. I told her that I would come back. even if it was paid, or, I just want to make sure that the work I started is continued. So I wouldn't have a problem with being helpful and being able to support a new person with that. Other than that,
You're hitting them all.
other than that, I think that a younger person also has a little bit, probably more drive and a lot more energy. So I think that, you're 6 and 1/2 dozen of the other. You're getting hopefully a younger person who's going to grow with the district, who will develop relationships with the staff and be able to do what, to help them, but with enough knowledge that they'll be effective. So, I think it weighs on the side of being more important, rather than the concerns about a person not quite fitting or that being an overriding concern. I think the other thing outweighs that, in my opinion, if I were in your shoes.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to thank you for the quality of the work. What we have seen from you, the reports that we've seen in the last few months have been really wonderful, so.
You're welcome.
I
actually love the work.
Yeah,
Not the
we're on our
discipline.
second or third part-time curriculum director, and if you, second, okay, because we had and it's just, the difference between the last one and what you've done has been really impressive.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
But I have good people to work with, so I'm going to tell you, you got good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am not.
Ms. Young, did you have any follow-up on that?
I think what Nancy was speaking to is that the paperwork part, the document creation part is one piece, but helping teachers understand and execute an effective curriculum using effective pedagogy and assessment practices is really key. And certainly Adrian and I can do some of that through the evaluation process, but we can't be in the trenches all the time, as we would hope that a full-time curriculum coordinator.
And that would help with evaluation, correct?
It would be. I mean, it would be a much more supportive and integrative experience, because teachers would be getting feedback more often, and informal feedback, so not evaluative from a curriculum coordinator. So they'd have lots of opportunities to practice before observations.
Any other discussion on this? I'd like to point out that I think we'd be asking the superintendent to post the job. If we don't get the candidate we like, who's not like a rock star, I could see us definitely going back to some proportional curriculum director. If we don't get it what we want.
Yeah, I don't want to hire just anybody.
Right.
That's not what I'm looking for,
Right.
absolutely. I'm looking for somebody that will continue the work that's already been started, and
Right. So just doing this, I think we're starting the process, but I don't think we're necessarily committing to not having this part-time curriculum director at this time, at least. Maybe that's what we end up with anyway still, so. Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No, motion carries 3-2. All right. Next on our agenda, we're going back to the top. We're going to do approval of school board minutes. In our packet, starting on page 3, we have board minutes from March 30th.
So moved.
Move to approve, is there a second? Is there a second? Seems no second. Any comments on the minutes, the public minutes of March 30th?
we should have read that. But she said it.
But it'll be in the minutes, so.
That's true.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve the non-public minutes from March 30th.
Second.
Any discussion on these? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries 5-0. And we have publics, starting on page 9, minutes of the public session for April 6th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? There is not. Okay. I will make a motion to approve those minutes.
Sorry.
Is there a second? Yes. Okay. Any discussion on these?
Dr. Adrian Alford.
Let's leave that in there. Has a nice ring.
I've already been informed.
Okay. All right, all in favor of approving these minutes? Yes? Shane? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes? Yes. All opposed? Abstentions? 2 abstentions? 3 with 2 abstentions?
How many?
3 with 2 abstentions? Motion carries. And then we have non-public minutes for April 6th. Now I realize why you didn't make that motion. Because you weren't
Just
there.
sitting there waiting for someone else to do it.
I will make the motion to approve the non-public minutes of April 6th, 2017. And would you like to second that, Mr. Wells?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on these? All in favor? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Abstain? 3 with 2 abstentions? Motion carries. That concludes our approval of minutes. Next up, we have our business administrator's report. Ms. Whitmore.
My report begins on page 18. Again, the revenues are coming in steady. I did indicate in my financial notes that I'm going to estimate that we're going to receive about $10,000 to $15,000 less in Medicaid revenue this year. I confirmed that actually with the special education department after these financials went out, and when students come into the school that can, like the paperwork done for the Medicaid is done here, the families can actually opt out for us to receive this revenue. We actually have a couple of families that have decided to do that. The special ed department went back to our third-party billing company, MSB, and researched with them to find out how much money we received for those 2 families last year, and it was about $16,000. So that seems about right.
So is that going to be reflected in the?
So if you look at your revenue report, line 8, Medicaid reimbursements. So right now, it's $47,000 short, but we're going to be receiving money through the remainder of the year through 6/30. But I'm expecting it to fall short about $10,000 to $15,000. We had our monthly financial meeting with Jocelyn, Adrian, Bob, and Ed. Again, we're still anticipating certain lines. We're working on closing out more purchase orders. We did a cutoff as of April 1st, so those will still be there. I did release money in the fuel oil lines. I think the electricity is going to be tight. So currently we have about $143,000 left in unexpended funds. And Bob had asked me to research about what the savings for the health insurance would be from what we anticipated from the do not exceed rates to what they came in, and that is $17,527.
So I have a question on that. As near as I can tell, doing quick math, there's $100,000 difference in the insurance budget and the insurance that we're going to spend.
I did not account for changes that people have made. I went based off of what we budgeted. So I took the budget and I took the percentage difference from the do not exceed rates that we estimated versus what they actually came in at.
So do you have a spreadsheet? I mean, there's $100,000 savings in insurance this year.
I don't have a spreadsheet, but I have that total health insurance and the financial statements that we budgeted for was $834,640. The decrease from the do not exceed rate from what it came in at was 2.1%. If you take 2.1% off that 834, it's 17,527.
2.1%?
2.1%. We estimated a decrease of 1.7, and it came in at a decrease of 3.8.
And so the other $83,000 is what?
Due to staffing changes, family changes, births, marriages. I was not told to take all those into effect because you have a lot of staff changes from year to year. I was told just to take the do not exceed rates versus what they came in at.
So that 142 does include that 17,000 right now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I was told that was the difference that the board was looking for to turn back to the town.
So we anticipate, of that 142, we anticipate being less 17,000 for, well, because we want to give that back to the town. We don't want to spend that. Another 15,000 because of catastrophic aid.
Correct.
And then how much do we have for our warrant articles, our capital reserve funds? Do you recall?
I didn't bring that with me. I think it's about 90.
90,000.
90,000.
90 for that. So if we don't want to dip into that, we're down to like $20,000, maybe left in the budget, on my calculation. Anything else interesting you want to point out for us in the lines, or?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Any other questions for our business director? Go once, twice. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I don't know that we have anything else. We need to let her go.
I'm going to wait for the manifest so I can bring them in the morning, if that's okay.
Yep. No problem at all. You're, of course, welcome to stay. Sure. All right, our assistant controller's report. Controller?
No, Commissioner.
Commissioner.
I don't know.
Commissioner.
The report's on page 34 with an attachment on page 35. You can see we've been working on getting the SBAC administration and the tide ready. I've been attending a lot of meetings at Co-Brown Northwood Academy and its annual reviews, so I think I'm almost done. I think I have like 10 or 15 left. Been spending a fair amount of time in court and meeting with some juvenile justice and probation officers, planning for some special education changes, and of course supporting the administration and planning for extended school year services. We had a wonderful speaker, I hear. I was on vacation, but I heard on April 18th there was a just great speaker about internet safety. And then our next parent night is May 16th, I think, but it's, yes. And that will be Lynn Lyons, who will be giving a presentation on anxious parents and anxious kids and how to help the students with anxiety. We'll make sure we get those up to our social media gurus and repost those and send out alerts to our parents.
May 16th, you said?
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
And I believe the brochure is already up on the SAU website. It's been there for a while. So if anybody wants to access that, they can go to sau44.org and access that right on the homepage.
Can I ask you a quick question about that?
You sure
Is that
can.
open to any member of the public? Or just people in the town?
That's open to anybody.
Anyone, okay.
Anybody can go to those.
All right, thank you.
I think there is an RSVP system for this one, so please use it so we know you're coming, so we can make sure we have a big enough space. Below is, I also gave you some information in your packet about impact fees, and I got the Nottingham School District last night to release another legal opinion that I'll pass out when we get to that, to make public, just information for the board members. And your census is below. There is an error in your census under Joliker Schools, which is a section of Easter Seals. That should say 2, not 1. Other than that, everything right now is pretty static. On page 35 is your indicated letter from early, for your transition from family-centered early supports and services, which is birth to age 3 special ed, to preschool. You had one ESS transfer, and it was done within the required timelines from the federal government. So you got 100, which is always good to get 100.
A+.
And actually, the other districts got hundreds too, so there's more than just one. And that's just some information that came from the Department of Ed this month. And any questions?
Questions for our Assistant Superintendent?
Are we going to, is that going to come back to us?
We move on to our principal's report, Ms. Young.
Yeah, I haven't closed it out yet.
So, a little update of the Article residents. We have an idea of what we're going to create, which will be a mosaic of this picture, so Shane, I'll have you pass that around. So that is going to be the final end piece, and the students are going to be taking pictures of their liking, and then it's all going to collaborate into formulate that picture. We're going to hang it up probably in the cafeteria. It will be mobile, so we'll have it in there for a while. We can also position it around different places in the...
It's okay, you cool.
in the school. That'll be a nice little piece, and then students will be able to also make a little individual piece for themselves as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. And another little update, we have a 3D printer here at the school. I think it's really neat. Definitely goes along with STEM. And Steve and I, Mr. Robert, have been kind of figuring out how the 3D printer works and how we can incorporate it into curriculum and with students. So Shane, I'm going to pass this around. I know you don't want to touch it, but you're going to have to, buddy. I'm sorry. So that is something that came out today, which is a little mouse, but Steve 3D. Plans on working with 7th and 8th grade to kind of get that 3D printer going so kids can start creating stuff, you know, engineering and using CAD programs to get that going, because I think it's pretty interesting. So, yeah. Oh, and we did have a children's author here, Marty Kelly. He was meeting with the grade levels and the younger grade levels, throwing my mouse, K to 5. And he was really engaging. The kids really enjoyed it. He had a lot of energy, and it kind of hooked him into reading, so it was really great to have him here.
All right, I will start with the report in the packet and then move on to the one I just passed out. So in the packet, I included a letter from Erica Lee, who is the parent of 2 of our students. She was just writing to thank us again for participating in the Kitty Quarterstone fundraiser. And then I just really wanted to highlight that our students and staff generosity inspired generosity in someone else. A gentleman who saw the article in the paper matched Northwood School's donations to Kitty Cornerstone. So it was really nice. Just an example of Northwood School being inspiring to others. An update on summer programming. We have posted ESY, extended school year positions internally, and so far we're looking pretty good for paraprofessional positions. Since I wrote this report, we do have 1 applicant for a teacher, but we're now looking for 2. I will be asking Linda Osborne at the SAU to post those positions externally, since we're not getting internal interest. Title I summer program, Lee Cronin is our lead teacher for the summer program, along with Melanie Anktel and Deb Clark. And the 3 of them have met and identified a theme for the Title I program, which will be agriculture specific to New Hampshire. So kids are going to be doing a lot of academic but fun and engaging activities around gardening, farming. They're thinking about some local field trips, visiting presenters that tie into that theme. We have sent out invitations for K through 5 students and started receiving some back. And then for the 6 through 8 STEM program, we have 2 teachers from outside of our school who are connecting with each other and planning. And we have also invited students for that based on teacher recommendations and already gotten some of those back. And then I just provided a list of some of the upcoming events. I'm finding that spring here is very busy, so this list will be added to. I do want to point out my 3rd bullet down in the upcoming events has a typo. The curriculum night for 5 through 8 will be the first night on May 8th, and K through 4 will be on the 2nd night. And that's also incorrect in the Laker, so we'll send out a correction to that to make sure people know. And it's also on the sign out front correctly. So everybody is invited to Willy Wonka, May 10th and 11th. First grade musical performance on May 17th. Incoming freshman night for CBNA on May 30th. And as we discussed last time, graduation will be June 16th, and the last day of school will be an early release on June 20th. And then also wanted to move on. I was asked to create a wish list of things, so these are in order of importance. The first is replacing the gym door that goes to the outside. The door itself and the frame are rotting on the bottom half.
Is that the one on the street side?
Yes. So we would be interested in replacing that. Also, in terms of security, we would be interested in adding 2 additional cameras on the exterior of the building, one pointing at the courtyard and one pointing at the street towards the playground. The third item on here is an online platform. In a school that has a one-to-one initiative for grades 4 and up, we have a lot of web-based application type things, and kids have a lot of logins to remember and URLs to remember, bookmarks to keep track of, that type of thing. Schoology is a organizational system for that, so it's kind of one logon for kids. They can link all of their IXL and Seesaw and Wonders accounts and Go Math accounts and everything into that one portal. It also serves as a communication tool for teachers to parents, parents to teachers. So that would be more of a technology realm wish list item. And then I don't think it's realistic in terms of budget for this year, but I just wanted to start putting it out there that the 7-8 lockers are almost 30 years old. And at some point will need to be replaced, and it is a bit expensive to do that. So just wanted to start planting those seeds. Also in my addendum, a few months ago, Lauren Dow had noted that because of the being down a bus, we have some transportation money that's not being spent, and asked if the board would consider some funding of field trips, transportation specifically, and you guys have already approved one of those for 3rd grade. You have 2 more in the packet, or in the packet I just handed out. Kindergarten is requesting up to a $430 subsidy, if you will, to offset some costs for a field trip. And then 5th grade is also requesting money. The 5th graders themselves wrote, 3 5th graders themselves wrote the letter for you. They were polite and didn't specify an amount of money, but it's somewhere in the ballpark of $620. So we would be asking for the board to consider partially or fully granting those requests. And then a couple things I have that are not written down. We have, you may have noticed, 2 tech lines that are overspent, software and replacement of equipment. Those are for things that sort of came up just in the last couple weeks. We're trying really hard not to overspend in lines, so I just wanted to make you aware of that. And also wanted to make you aware that with the approval of full-day kindergarten, which is super exciting, we will want to explore buying a smart board for that classroom. So that will be an additional expense moving forward that you can be on the lookout for. I think that's all I have. And open to questions or comments.
Just one comment. I'm looking into the additional money for the 5th grade and the kindergarten. I think it's a great idea. If we could just look into next year, if we need to budget more money in the transportation costs for.
We took it out.
We took it out.
We took it out.
So I have something to say about this too.
Okay, we did
So
take it out. That's why I was wondering. All right.
When we were doing the budget for last year, we wanted to get, try to reduce the budget, so we took out the money we had for field trip stuff. At the time, I was something like that. At the time, I was suggesting that we could reduce our school board salaries as well, and it was brought up that, well, instead of reducing our salaries, we could either donate the money back or just elect not to get paid, so the extra money will be in the budget, and then the school board could decide what to do with that money. At the time, that's what I did. So if you look at our monthly review on page 26, we have an anticipated balance of $14,058.34 in school board salaries, which is my salary because I didn't take it, and I was actually hoping that we could use that money towards field trips. I mean, that was my intent for that. I mean, it is the school board's money, the board can decide what to do, but this is what I was hoping the board would do about it. So I am perfectly happy.
What line was it?
It's a line, it's the 3rd line from the bottom on page 26 in the packet.
26 of the packet, not 26 of the report, 7 of the report.
Right, 7 of 14. This numbering is awesome.
It's sort of like policies.
Yeah.
And what is it? The school board salaries?
That's the school board salaries, right? So that's the salary that I didn't take, right? And my hope was that I would ask the board that we could use that money for funding field trips, and so we have some field trips.
So motion to approve the.
Keith's fund.
Keith's fund, yeah, the slush fund. Motion to approve the kindergarten and 5th grades. Well, actually, I should say, motion to approve $430 for the kindergarten and $620.
Up to.
Up to.
Can I take 2 seconds to just find it in my email?
Yep.
I would hate to short
Just to make
them.
sure. Yep.
And just another question, and if you can, the 8th grade field trip, is there anyone that is not able to make it
Right.
because of financial reasons? Do you know of?
No.
Everything's good?
Mrs. Hashem and Ms. Hashem and Mrs. Tyler have been offering support to families, and my understanding is that everybody is all set.
That's what they've told us.
Are you checking on the 620? Is that what's going on?
Yes,
Okay.
hold on one second.
Yep.
Oh, no, I do not want
To talk to.
to talk to the phone.
Well, we could just approve it for 620 anyway.
682. Sorry.
So for 430 for the kindergarten and 682 for the
Up
5th
to.
grade. Up to. Not to exceed. Second it.
Second. All right, any discussion on that?
Seems like you should go a little higher, because things happen, but
A little higher for the field trips? I was kind of hoping.
I think the parents can cover it if it goes above 682 or
I
430.
mean, if you made it, so that's 11, 12, made it like $1,200 for the two
Oh,
field
total,
trips.
you mean?
I was kind of hoping, oh yeah, we could do that. I mean, it's easy.
12 or
but-
1,300, because stuff happens.
Everybody's doing a great job spending your money.
I know, right? Either that, or we could look for, maybe if there's another possibility for a
There
field
may,
trip too.
there may be
Right.
additional requests.
Right. So I mean, this is 2 grades, hopefully the other grades will, after this, if we do it with this, we have about $400 left in that fund, and maybe somebody else we could fund a trip for, so.
So you got how much in it?
Well, it's $14.58, right? And so,
Why don't you just do it for $415.58 and let Mrs. Young decide how it's being spent?
for field trips, you mean? I
Yeah.
could just say she can fund whatever field
Or
trips.
field trips,
I'd be
yeah.
okay with that. Would you like to amend your motion?
Second Tim's. Oh, you want to amend it?
Well, it's, you would have to amend
I'll
your
amend
thing,
it so
but,
that 1458 for field trips at the discretion of administration.
I mean, to me, that's a very legitimate expense, and if Keith wants to spend his money, when I took several years without taking the money, and I suggested different ways that I thought the board should use that money over the years, and they always did, and I think that's a very legitimate thing for him to do, and a nice thing, so I would just 1458, and Ms. Young can just dole it out as she sees fit, and doesn't have to come back to us.
Sounds good to me. Motion second, any further discussion on that?
And your favorite rocket ship?
All in favor?
Field trips.
Field trip. Field trip. As many as possible, in fact. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Is there any other action items you needed from us tonight, Ms. Young?
Thank the 5th graders for writing that letter. It was very nice. And Miss Magnuson, but it was very nice from the 5th graders also.
Any final questions for Ms. Young? Seeing none, we will move on to the enrollment report. Mr. Rooney.
You're up 2 students from last month, and I'm trying to scan to see where those are.
Just one.
Well, 385 to 387.
Oh, you know what? I think of Cole Brown from last. Oh, I'm thinking of the one from last night. Sorry, which was a week after this one. Sorry, the budget committee one was different. Because it was
Right,
a week
because
later.
this one has to go to you first.
Right. So it was just one.
You're up 2 students, Miss Young. Can you tell me?
I did not know I was going to be quizzed on this, Mr.
Well, I know, right?
So it
Neither
looks
did
like
I.
we're up 1 in 2nd grade.
Yeah.
And we are up 1 in 4th grade. That was a returning student.
Okay.
We love her so much.
And that looks like we're so it also looks like we're down 1 somewhere and up 1 somewhere else. So, yes.
I think we have one new Co-Brown student too, from the looks of things.
You have an assignment for me, yeah.
Yeah, I did sign it. Any discussion or questions about the enrollment? Thank you, Mr. Rooning. We'll move on to Mr. Rooning with superintendent report.
Personnel report on page 56. Nominate Carol Summers. For Title I summer paraprofessional for a total salary of $792.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion on this? All in favor of electing Ms. Summers?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Motion carries unanimously.
Nominate Jody Labrie as special educator and Kathleen Wimsat as classroom teacher.
So moved.
Second that. Any discussion on these?
I do. I'd just like to say that I'm not a big fan of unions in general, although saying that, I've never been in a union, never in all my years had anything to do with a union until I got on the school board. I'm not against unions, but it kind of tickles me to death that finally I saw a clear indication where belonging to a union was an advantage. I think that what has happened here and nominating these two to stay in our school is wonderful. I think the entire episode was handled as badly as anything I've ever seen, so I'm happy to say that I'm going to vote in approving these two to be renewed.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Anything else in the superintendent reports?
I'd like to read the board an email about the ongoing legislative voting day delay. Would that be okay?
Please do.
Let's hope my phone's charged. So I got this afternoon, and I think this will give you a little guidance on what we need to do. And also, Ms. Gunter asked me to forward it to her husband for obvious reasons. I'm not sure if it applies to him right now. But I can tell you that at 11:59, I got an email. The House and Senate just passed an amended version of House Bill 329 dealing with the ratifying elections and the results of postponed annual meetings. A minor change was made to both bills to allow for a public hearing rather than a public meeting, which means that the school boards will have to hold a public hearing that allows for public comment prior to the board's ratification vote. The bill will now go to the governor for his signature, so you're sort of on hold until that's signed, and then we'll put it on your agenda and hopefully resolve the snowstorm election delay.
Is there any dates or anything like that mentioned, or
No, I mean,
like how soon it has to be done or anything?
2019.
well, no, you're going to have to.
It's just waiting for the governor's signature, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean,
but I think
after it goes in.
Mr. Wells' question is like, so when do we have to do that? Well, you're going to have to do it before you implement your next operating budget, right? So you'd have to do it before that. So I'm thinking in the next 2 weeks, he's going to sign, and we're going to throw it on the agenda for you.
Well, we have to have a public hearing first, so.
You can have the public hearing right before the school board meeting, then you can ratify after that.
Good idea.
Hey.
We'll see the big bucks.
Once in a while. I'm sorry. It's actually new business. It's all you now.
Okay, you all set then? Any questions for Mr. Runing, acting superintendent for the night? Well, with many other titles.
A little confusing.
Okay, I'm going to move on to new business then. First thing up for new business is teacher evaluation summaries. Mr. Runing indicated that he would probably be more comfortable doing this in non-public, so if you don't mind, we will do that then. We'll have a non-public session after, so we can go over that as part of that. Our decisions on kindergarten curriculum director is done, so what's left for new business is our impact fees discussion. You have something to say for that? Okay.
I put some things in your packet, and also I got Nottingham to release another legal opinion last night at their board meeting, so it's public, so I can give it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, when I talk about your reading originally, wait.
What's that? Yeah, just give me a second. Meantime, do you want to summarize, perhaps?
Impact fees? Not really my
No,
area
no.
of expertise.
What the letter says for members of the public.
Right, there was, actually, why don't I summarize what's in the packet? That will be.
Yep, that'd be sufficient.
helpful.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
All right. So I tried to give, I know that some people know about impact fees and some people don't know about impact fees, so I tried to put together sort of a differentiated packet for you. One of the articles I put in there was Demystifying Impact Fees, which talks about the town of Hudson, which Mr. Kreider was discussing at one point when we talked about impact fees. But impact fees are generally created by your town side of government. And what happens is for new development, you charge the developer a certain fee, and a certain portion goes to wherever the town in that zoning ordinance determines that that portion goes to. So in Nottingham, those impact fees, a portion goes to the fire department, a portion goes to the school. It doesn't go directly to the school, it's held in a separate fund, and it builds up over time. And I think Nottingham right now is somewhere around $260,000 for the school portion. It really is very important for the town side of government to define what the impact fees are for in that zoning ordinance, because that determines how those impact fees are used, right? So you can see, although those Nottingham legal opinions aren't incredibly germane to the topic in Northwood, you can see the complications that come when you try to apply impact fees and how it's not delineated that in your zoning ordinance. For instance, Nottingham would like to do a school facility space, well, it's even different now, it's changed. So Nottingham would like to do a space study because their building is bursting at the seams and their enrollments are up. And they would also like to do enrollment projections. But it's unclear as to whether we can use those impact fees. We know that we can use them for the space study because we're anticipating growth, but we don't know if we can use those fees for the enrollment study, which will sort of predict what your growth may be. So it's just really important if the school district decides they want to talk to the town side about impact fees and development fees, is that they're really thoughtfully defined, so when that account builds and there's a growth incident, if there's a growth incident, you can take those fees and use them to improve your facility or other things that are defined by the original zoning ordinance when it comes to impact fees. That was incredibly confusing, wasn't it?
No, exactly.
It wasn't? Did I do all right?
Yeah, really good, yeah. But it looks like it has to be growth-related stuff, right? You can't approve, like
Well,
seeing this, you can't
again,
approve baseball field.
I think in the legal opinions, you're looking at the restriction of how the ordinance was worded. So I think it's really incumbent on either the planning board or whoever, I'm not that familiar with
Yeah,
towns.
it's-
I live in one, but I don't.
One thing I give, it has to be new construction because of growth.
Well-
It can't be like, hey, library needs to be remodeled, we're gonna remodel.
Right, it has to be based on growth. So you've had growth in your town because of new construction, and those fees are to sort of brace your municipal facilities for growth, right? So, 100 people move into, a new developer comes in and creates a 55-plus community in your town, and you collect impact fees. Those impact fees probably, in a logical way, would go to expand your services that unit would require, right? Which wouldn't be school services, that would be like fire, health and safety services. Broad generalization. Please. So, it really, yeah. And in schools, Nottingham's considering now, I did make a couple phone calls to a couple organizations to do a space study. They're going to have to consider, one of the questions they need to answer for themselves is, and they are bursting at the seams, is do we do a portable, do we do a modular, do we do an addition? And how do we use those fees to help bolster that, whether it be an architectural study or, growth projections or a portion of the project.
So should we develop a committee for that?
Well, or is this something that would come out of our strategic planning?
Well,
This is something
you,
we should talk to the planning board, if anything.
right.
Yeah.
You don't have.
Planning board.
I'd like to have a
this needs-
liaison with the planning board.
This needs to be initiated by not here.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
There's no
Although it can be
obligation of the
suggested.
planning board, there's no obligation of the planning board to
Correct.
make a portion of those impact fees go to the school at all.
Well, before we even do that, we have to have it voted in that we can do impact fees. I think
But that's not a vote by us, though.
No, right, that's a vote at the town meeting.
Right.
So that needs to be authorized by the body first, legislative body, and then the planning board has to be the ones going forward with it, and looks at things, so.
But somebody has to initiate it, number one, which is why I asked to have the discussion. I certainly think, at least from my standpoint, the next step, periodically we have a meeting with the selectmen, and I think that's in line, something we should do fairly quickly. And I think this subject should be broached with them. If they got behind it, and we were behind it, and then went to the planning board, that would go a lot further. So for instance, if you took a look at specifically the town, one of the things that is sorely, sorely needed, our police station and both fire stations are woefully inadequate, in my opinion, to the point of embarrassment as far as I'm concerned. The conditions of one of the fire stations and the condition of the police department is just absolutely ridiculous, and should be improved. So that's an area that an impact fee, I believe, could be worded such that in a few years we'd start to collect some money. Now, whether I agree or not really doesn't matter. Shane Wells tonight said that in his feelings, we're going to have a town that's going to grow in the next few years. I know that Joe Gunter, he and I have had many conversations. He feels that Northwood is on the cusp of a pretty impressive growth time in the next few years, and that we're actually going to add a considerable amount of construction and people. If that happens, that's the time when an impact fee would be very, very beneficial, both to the town and the school. And all of the reading I've done is it's the wording. The problem at Nottingham and other areas, if you look and go talk to those people or read what has been said, it always comes down to the homework and the pre-work in writing the impact fee and how that money could and should be spent, selling that to the taxpayers is where it fell apart. And so it beholds both the town and the school board to get legal opinions and to write it correctly, because if in fact Shane Wells and Joe Gunter are correct and we're going to have a growth in town, that's going to impact the need of a better police station, fire station, and some parts of our school, and an impact fee would be very beneficial, if written correctly.
He did a nice job summarizing it, too. No, he did, he's right. It's how they word the ordinance that determines how you use the fees. And then the rest of the packet, I gave you the RSAs, and then a little article from the Bar Association on the perils of the ordinance, and that should give you some information on how it should be worded as opposed to how sometimes it's worded.
So how about
That's it for
this?
me.
Why don't we see about setting up a meeting with the selectmen?
Agree.
And we'll put this on that agenda, along with any other, along with maybe capital improvement plans, because that's related as well. We need those. And then take it from there.
Can I just ask a question? So you meet with them once, how often do you meet with this select?
About once a year, but there's no...
Do they usually come here, or do you go there?
It's our time to go there, but it's back and forth, but I'm just saying, I think the last time they came here is my recollection.
All right, I think I remember that too. So impact fees and CIP? And so if you're going to meet with them who do I get in touch with to post a meeting?
You would get in touch, I would say, with Joe Gunter
Right.
and ask him to put it on the agenda. Do they want to have a meeting with the school board, and when would be a good time?
Does anybody have a date that
Well,
works?
before we go with dates, let's just talk about the selectmen, their agenda, and that is so jam-packed the next,
Right, we may just have to,
because they've missed like the last 3 meetings because of snowstorms and other things, so you might want to.
A summer date?
See when they're available, because the next agenda is probably going to be
All right.
a good.
I'll talk to
yeah,
Joe.
when we come
This
back.
is impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
we don't talk to them for a month, it isn't gonna, I mean.
I'll shoot for something over this summer,
Yeah, it just,
right?
in the next 3 or 4 meetings or something.
Of course, you're going to have to remind me. Did
Nothing
you do that?
pressing.
So,
You know what, okay, so tell you,
have to, yeah.
put it, can you make a note to put it on our calendar? Or, not our calendar,
Timeline?
put it on our parking lot item, as a parking lot item, to arrange a meeting with the selectmen,
yep.
and that way we won't forget about it.
Operating budget.
In fact, we could probably take off the impact fee and replace it with that, you know, or, you know, move it together.
Yep.
We did have that discussion.
In a certain area of the town.
That was just a certain area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a certain area.
Yeah, so we would,
You guys, you guys wanted to, you have a discussion you want to bring to the board?
No, we're just
Good time on it?
talking about what Tim was saying, that if the school wants to be part of the impact fees, we would have to, and then what you said about, we would have to put it on a warrant article for next year.
Well, what I was asking is, because it says first, the
Yes. It needs to be approved.
municipality must have
Right. It needs to be
enacted a
approved by the
capital
town.
improvement plan, program.
That too.
And didn't you say that something had been started a few years ago but had never been,
Well, that's just
Seen
a
through.
personal irritation to me. So, we have a capital improvement plan, number one. But I believe that the impact fee states that we have to have a master plan.
it just says program,
Okay,
capital
and-
improvements
and
program.
My understanding is the program is a master plan, and we do have a master plan that is so old it's ridiculous. And we have been working, I wish the planning board chairman was here, Bob Strobel, so I could stab him in the back again with my perennial knife. I believe that we've been working on a master plan for at least 5 years now, to update our 2003 master plan. And it's just as absurd that we, in 5 years, can't update our master plan. Just absolutely absurd to me. So, you know, and whatever. But we need a new master plan, but we do have one.
Okay.
So I do believe we would pass that. It's just absurd, again, that
Right.
we can't make a new master plan.
We'd have to get on top of our CIP plan as well, if we're doing anything along those lines. Okay, getting right into that. Next up is committee reports. The Facilities Committee met to update our CIP report.
Negative, Coach Ryder.
Negative, all right. Is that on the calendar at some point?
It will be next week.
Okay.
We'll get with Tim and we'll schedule time.
Excellent. Any other committees meet in the meantime?
Policy Committee met today.
Great.
We looked at a bunch of first aid and medical policies, which we are kicking back to the nurse, and they will come soon.
Great. We did have a,
Fascinating topic.
It was fascinating. We talked about Narcan.
Clove oil, yeah.
Clove oil, right?
we did have a technology meeting, where we did, the teachers did bring forth some software programs that are interested in deploying to the classroom. So Steve did have some extra money in his budget, so they're probably going to go forward with some of those. We also got a report from him. And there was an education committee meeting where they interviewed I believe it was three candidates for Co-Brown for teachers. One biology teacher and one, I forget what the other one was. Maybe two biology teachers and one other person, but. Anybody interested in the minutes, I can get you some of those. Budget committee?
Was there a student from Co-Brown that we were going to have or not? I forgot.
Not
Yes.
figured.
And do we have any?
I haven't.
Any
heard-
applications?
We haven't, for the strategic, you're talking about for
Yeah.
strategic planning?
Yeah, I don't have that information, I'm sorry. I can follow up with Dr. I wasn't here for your strategic plan.
There's a young lady on the Beanhole Bash, she comes at the Beanhole Bash Committee, and she's, I can get you her name, she's,
Do that tomorrow, and I'll shoot up there.
right,
She's a Co-Brown student?
she's a Co-Brown student, and she's just, I mean, she's really involved. She brought us a page and a half of suggestions for things that would bring in her age and younger to the Beanhole Bash. I mean, she's just really involved, and I think she would be wonderful for.
Tim, if you could give me that name in the morning.
I'll
have to go
call
up-
somebody and
I
get
have
you
to
the
go up and
name.
do some paperwork there tomorrow, so I'll be there.
All
If I
right.
can have
She's
it
just-
before I go.
She really is a nice young lady and doesn't seem afraid to speak up.
I believe we have, what, till May 7th, Marie, was it?
That sounds right.
For people to get back, so anybody who wants to be on the strategic planning working group. I think we did have someone from the budget committee signed up. Any word on the students?
I haven't heard anything about students. I have had some teachers asking questions and expressing tentative interest. So we did talk about it at the building leadership team meeting yesterday, and getting the word out of, tell that a little bit. So.
Okay. So, yeah, I think we have till May 7th, and then the executive team will meet to select candidates from there. So if anybody knows or can get anybody, please have them contact Dr. Godomsky. Budget committee, did they, is there anything interesting from there?
Yesterday. No, they were, the only questions that they had were, when the money, because the bus line is totally encumbered, when Marjorie was going to release that amount, that's because we didn't have that extra bus there. And they asked about fresh picks, when we were going to get the adjustment from that contract. But Marjorie had already answered those, because they won't close their books out until June probably also, so we won't get that. And then there were some questions that Mr. Rooning answered around numbers of students in special ed.
Should be all resolved.
Great. The other committees.
I was approached by Lauren Dow, and she said she was going to reach out to me. I don't know, she's not here, but for clubs committee, they wanted to try to do that earlier this year, so that.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Clubs, I don't
She
think.
said she was going to email me, I haven't gotten an email. I'm assuming you haven't either.
No, but I think I saw them today.
And calendar committee, I assume we're not. We have to do that for a little while, right? I can't think of any other committees we have, but.
And I think technology might have met, is that what you
We
said?
did, yes.
And I totally, when she sent me that stuff, I was like, I signed up for technology again?
Yeah.
So I just looked through there and I forgot that I signed up.
I just assumed they forgot to send it to you, because we never told them that you were on it, but they must have figured that out themselves.
Yeah, well, they sent it to me after the meeting, so I was like, I signed up for that again, but, okay, so that's good.
It was fun. It was a good time. We really missed out. All right. There being no other committee reports, we're going to go with old business. We do have our acknowledgement of the school board ethics policy, which Shane and I signed, and I will hand around for signatures.
Okay. Thank you. While we're doing this, I just, Marjorie asked me to remind everybody that, because we're having a meeting this week, she'll need signatures next week for
Do we need
payroll.
2 signatures for payroll next Wednesday or Thursday?
I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to be available.
I'll be around.
Huh?
I'll be around. Working all day.
I don't have next Thursday off, so I don't know that I'll be around unless somebody wants to meet me at my house either at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Tim, do you want to sign the
7 o'clock at
ethics
night,
policy
so.
stuff?
No, thank you.
Will you,
You're still
Tim,
bound by the
will
ethics
either of you
policies
be
if you
available
don't
Wednesday
sign
or
it, you
Thursday to
realize.
sign
Nope.
payroll?
Not at all.
Next week?
There's nothing in the elections, but, when I signed up that said I had to sign anything like
What
that.
time does the SAU close?
We got multiple
So
conversations.
we don't have meetings next week?
Tim, will you be available at all next week to?
I am.
To sign payroll Wednesday or Thursday?
I am. I just, when it's ready, somebody should call me and I'm 2 minutes away. I can run right up.
Okay.
But they have to
If
call.
they don't call me, I'll completely forget.
Not send an email, right?
I just looked at emails after at least a week, so I'm sorry.
We'll call you, Tim.
I'm not married to a phone or emails, but if you call me, I will
I'll
be
call
happy
you
to run
Wednesday or
it.
Thursday when it's ready.
I'll be happy to come up.
Okay. Moving on with parking lot items, we are pretty much all set. We've discussed all those things already, other than the cafeteria ceiling, but that's, facilities committee is up for that. School board timeline for April. I was looking through this, and we've got pretty much everything done for April that is on our list. On May, there's a big list of things. There'll be renewal for the after-school program, surplus planning, which we're doing, kindergarten registration, teacher appreciation day, volunteer appreciation day. Ms. Young, I think typically the school board does contribute some money for teacher appreciation week for a lunch.
I asked Marjorie, and she said she'd get back to me, and she's like, I don't think you do that week. And I was like, I thought we did a lunch.
200?
Yeah.
Mr. Jandor, $200?
I think
Is that what
we
you
did.
did?
2 or 250?
250, I think it was
We've
last
always
year.
done it. I would say 250.
It's just really important to remember that they pay, but we get the food.
So do we need a motion for that?
Well, we could do it now, or we could wait on Wednesday appreciation week.
It's the week we get back from vacation, so
So
now
we
would be
should-
good.
So we should approve it now, then, if anything. So, all right.
Motion to
approve.
How much?
250, up to 250 for lunch. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Was that in your pencil?
Yeah.
Registration is and all that stuff?
Is that 5-0?
I think it was. I remember reading it.
250.
No, 5-0.
No. 250. Graduation date was set, summer school
already gone, I'll take
posted,
it.
we're all set. All right, one thing I did, while we're kind of moving on to setting future agenda items. Back in May, we were supposed to set our board goals, and we did not do that because we were all burned out on goals, I think, at the time. Now that we're all rested.
You say back in May?
In May, sorry, back in March. In March.
I was like,
May's not here yet.
let's not
Back in
rush
May,
it.
we're going to get
Not
all
rush.
burnt out again on goals, because I want to put that on the agenda for our next meeting. So what I'd like to do this time is to try to really nail them down and come with some ideas for, as a board, maybe 3 goals total, right? With, what was it, the SMART method? Well, you know, recite what that means.
Smart? Oh, my God, put me on the spot.
I know.
Jocelyn, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely, and S stands for specific. That was it.
So keep that in mind when you think about goals. They should be, try to get them specific, measurable,
Attainable, realistic, and timely.
Timely. So if we could put together 3 or 4 good goals for the year, I think that'd be good. I think we went a little crazy with it last year. I'd like to get together and just have something we can all agree upon. So I'd like that on the agenda for next week.
I got it.
Good. I mean, next month, next meeting. Also, next meeting, we'll look into meeting with selectmen, perhaps. Or maybe we can wait on that, actually.
I put it on your parking lot.
Okay, parking lot, that works. We should do a strategic planning update. Can we do that next agenda?
Sure.
Item? Is there anything else that people want on the agenda for our next meeting on May 4th?
You're going to have paraprofessionals and non-CBA nominations?
Okay.
I just forgot to give one update. Tom Chase was nominated as the Budget Committee representative to the
Strategic planning.
strategic plan.
Word soup here.
What's that?
It's word soup.
Yep.
Does anyone else have something they want on the agenda? Okay, if anything comes up, let me know. We just have to have the agenda set 7 days before the meeting.
When's the next meeting?
May 4th.
Can I just ask real quick? I was looking through this. Jocelyn, can you send out, do you guys mind if I ask Jocelyn to send out the beginning discussion of graduation awards nominations? So there's one that's usually from the school board.
Yes.
Can you send that out to us early? I think it's sort of, last year was the first year that we were actually asked to do it, and it wasn't like information was just brought to us of, these are the recommendations from the teachers. So if that's how it's going to be done again this year, if we could have the information a little bit earlier.
Okay.
At least for me, that would make it
Yeah,
a little
no,
bit
that's a-
easier. I mean,
that's a
I
good
know
idea.
this grade
Yep.
better, but it would make it a little bit easier than to try to make that
One of those
decision.
awards is one that the school board gives out.
Yeah.
Right, and for community service type of stuff, and yeah.
So up until
Normally, we don't
last
know the
year-
kids very well, so we kind of depend on administration staff to make some suggestions to us, and we'll look at it and
So up until last year, it was like the teachers would sort of make a recommendation to the administration, and then the administration would bring the recommendation to the board. And last year it was said, well, the board makes that decision because it's a board one, and we were all kind of like, well, we don't know these kids real well. So
Need to be signed.
that's how we're going to do it then. I just don't want
This one
to.
needs to be signed by you and her. Signed by everyone.
Okay.
And I'm telling them not to leave because I'm going to pass it off.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we do have the contracts to sign, so everybody please sign them soon, then we'll pass them around.
The contracts are signed?
The teacher.
You have to sign the agreement. So the parents just require 2 signatures, one from you and one from Keith. And the teachers has 5 lines.
I don't ever remember doing this.
Needs to be done.
Teacher contract.
I didn't do it last year. Ooh, oh, I thought it was stapled, I did it. Sorry. Here's your thing.
All right. I got it for you. That's what I'm here for, right?
Do it blue. Dave always says do it blue.
Oh, it has to be in blue?
No.
That's what Dave always used to say. Sign in blue, because then if you photocopy it, you can tell that it's been photocopied. Of course, that was in the age before color photocopies.
Well, I was always taught you don't want to write in anything but black because it doesn't show up well or whatever.
All right, so our upcoming meetings, we have a regular board meeting on May 4th and then on May 18th. We have a joint board meeting on May 22nd at the SAU office at 6:15, and then June 1st, 15th. Those are our other board meetings. Is there any closing public comment?
So they only needed the chair and the vice chair to sign the para one.
May 4th, May 18th.
I noticed during Ms. Whittemore's presentation that there was a discussion between her and Mr. Denver about some question about insurance costs. And there's a difference in the numbers. There was the $17,000 figure and a $100,000 figure. And I'm just wondering what was the practical implication of that
Right.
difference?
So traditionally, what we do is when we make our budget, we get an estimate from the insurance company that it'll be this much of an increase, right? And it's not the actual increase, it's not to exceed. The insurance company says it won't be any more than this. So we budget for that amount typically, right? And then when the actual insurance rates come in, they're different. You know, they may be lower. So, you know, the insurance company said it might go up 4%, but it came in at 2%, for instance, right? Traditionally, what the school board has done in those situations is we've said that that difference in the percentage, you know, we budgeted for the 4%, came in at 2%. We don't spend that money and we give it back to the town at the end of the year. That's typically what we've been doing. It's nothing legal. It's kind of, it says, Mr. Janner called this kind of a gentleman's agreement with the town that we do this.
So it sounded like, it sounded as though the fact was that there was that $17,000 difference, but then there was an additional $83,000 that you weren't spending on insurance? Is that, am I wrong about that?
No, I think that's true.
I think, and I have to check, but I think that number was the plan changes of the employees, whether they had a child that went on a family plan or this and that.
Right.
I think that number,
Right, because that's the actual number.
Was that. So what happens is we get a DNR number, a do not exceed rate from the insurance company before the budgets, right?
Do not resuscitate.
I think I followed all of
Police
that
gets,
part.
the fire department gets a do not resuscitate order, we get a do not. So, and then if it comes in, there's a difference. But then within that, you have to consider, did you hire somebody who's now on a single that has a family? Did somebody have a baby? Did somebody, you got to consider all those.
So the net effect, the practical outcome there is that there's $83,000 additional money that was unexpended for insurance?
More than that, I think, right? It's actually the 83 plus the 17.
83 plus 17, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying an additional 83,000.
Right.
So what is the issue around, the $17,000 gets returned to the town, but what happens with the 83,000?
If it's not spent, it'll get returned to the town as well.
All right, so what was the issue around, is it an issue of how it's reported? Or what?
No, it's more of the, you know, the board over the years has said that we will not spend that $17,000.
Okay,
Right,
17.
Right, we will not do
And
that.
then the 83 is,
That's just like any other line where things get overspent or underspent, that can be moved around as needed.
okay.
And the board may decide just to not spend that return to the town as well.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, thank you.
But we could also use it to pay off that $233,000 that were in the negative for Co-Brown.
Right. It
So-
can be,
Right.
all of that money can be moved between lines, it's just.
Right.
Yeah.
So are we having a discussion about that, or?
No, I'm sorry,
All
I
right.
really shouldn't be, but it's the public's time to talk, but. Anyone else? Any member of the board want to have any closing?
Yeah, I would, since you guys had the discussion. I just would like to clarify. Now, first of all, these are handwritten. I'm going to go home and put a calculator to all of this. So my estimates are by hand. There is, if you just go through all the insurance line, there's very close, give or take a few dollars, $100,000 less being spent on insurance than was budgeted. I hear you guys saying only the 17,000. I would be and will be interested to see when the budget committee hears about all of this, what they think. So is it that we agreed, and as you called it, a gentleman's agreement, that we would not spend the 17, or that we would not spend the insurance? Because historically, this has been used, in my opinion, as a means of creating money that could and has been spent elsewhere. There have been huge mistakes in this line. I could go back and show you records of just in 1 year, a $90,000 mistake made. So I'm going to try to figure out where all of that 100,000 is. So there's that 100,000. In addition, in buyouts, there's an additional $7,666 more that is not being spent if you go through all the lines in buyouts.
I'm sorry, how much?
$7,666. There's actually $14,541 in savings on all but one line, and $68.75 overspent on one line, for a net result of $7,666. So that's around $107,000, $108,000. And again, those are just rough numbers. I did this because I was surprised to see the 17. So we'll see how that goes. My experience, having been on the budget committee, having been the school board's representative to the budget committee, and being on the school board, is we have an agreement not to spend insurance money that was misbudgeted.
I'd just like to point out that I did tell the budget committee last night.
Sorry, just wait.
Okay.
Are you done?
I'm done, yes, thank you.
I did tell the budget committee last night about the $17,571, because I had the report from Marjorie. So I did, and you can look at the minutes, I brought that up,
Oh,
and I
I'm not
told them that
arguing
was
that,
the
I
do
just-
not exceed amount that is being returned
Guys,
to
it's-
the town.
If you want to put this on as an agenda item for next meeting, we can do that. If you want to have a discussion on this, that's fine.
Because I just-
But we're in public comment right now. and
Misbudgeted. I don't think it's misbudgeted. You can't predict.
Let's put it on the agenda for next meeting. Let's kick it around, right? We can have this discussion. That makes
Well,
sense.
then does that mean Marjorie has to come back to our next meeting, though?
Yes.
That's unfair to her.
And I absolutely agree with having a discussion, and I also absolutely agree with what Mr. Wells just said. It's extraordinarily hard, insurance, to predict. There are so many moving parts in the course of the year, which is why, in my opinion, we have this so-called gentleman's agreement with the budget committee to leave that line alone,
Let's do that.
going one way or the other.
Let's talk about that next time Marjorie's here. We'll make sure that happens.
So I put it
Okay?
on for the next, not the next, but the following.
Is there any other public comment? That's what we're doing right now. No public comment. Okay, very well. I believe we do have need for another non-public session, so if...
But I would recommend a break for everybody.
We can have a break in non-public. We can do it there. First, we need to have a motion for it. So
Going to non-public
under? It'll be under RSA 91-A:3 2C.
Shane seconded it.
In second, okay, roll call vote, Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Ms. Harper?
Yep.
I get you some water.
Mr. Jennifer?
Yes.